It is South Korea's first lunar orbiter and has been developed since 2016. It will be launched in early August 2022. It has a total of 6 science and technology payloads and will travel in BLT orbit for about 4.5 months to reach the moon, and then enter the lunar mission orbit at the end of December 2022.
Total mass of Danuri is 678 kilograms. After launch, 2 solar panels, a high-gain antenna, and a magnetometer are deployed for flight configuration in space. Total 6 payloads are equipped in the Danuri: Lunar Terrain Imager, LUTI, Wide-Angle Polarimetric Camera, POLCAM, Gamma Ray Spectrometer, KGRS, Magnetometer, KMAG, Delay Tolerant Network, DTNPL, Permanent Shadow Region Camera from NASA, ShadowCam. Danuri is launched toward the Sun, not the Moon. It will travel for about a month as the Sun gravity pulls it. Finally, it will reach around the L1 Lagrange point, which is the point of equilibrium under the influence of the Sun and the Earth's gravity. After that, when the TCM burn is started to make sure it can reach the Moon on the desired date, it will be pulled by the gravitational force of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun to travel several million kilometers. Then, it will naturally approach the Moon that is revolving around the Earth. After entering the lunar orbit, Danuri will maneuver several times to reduce the orbit altitude. Finally, it will reach the mission altitude of 100 kilometers in polar near-circular orbit for 6 payload missions. LUTI is a high-resolution camera that has the mission to take images of the lunar surface. POLCAM is composed of 2 cameras slanted by 45 degrees each to take polarimetric images of Moon surface. The Gamma Ray Spectrometer is used to make a map of 5 major elements on the entire surface of the Moon. Magnetometer is used to measure the strength of the magnetic field, which is invisible. ShadowCam will record images of the permanently shaded regions around the poles of Moon where no sunlight can reach. DTNPL will conduct the world's first communication test on the Moon.
From this time on, Korean space research and development will experience a very important turning point thanks to Danuri. It is a very significant milestone in the history of Korean space exploration. Danuri is just at the beginning. And if we are more determined and committed to technology development for space travel, we will be able to reach Mars, asteroids, and so on in the near future.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff.
Vehicles teaching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the KPLO payload to a ballistic lunar transfer orbit. So we are beginning to throttle down the engines on the first stage to prepare for a period known as max Q. During this period, the vehicle is going to experience the highest amount of aerodynamic stresses
Vehicle
on the
supersonic.
vehicle.
Max Q.
And there was max Q. So the engines are coming back up to full power. We have 3 events coming up in quick succession in about a minute. First up is MECO, that stands for Main Engine Cutoff, followed by Stage Separation, and then SES-1, which stands for Second Engine Start 1. Main Engine Cutoff is where the first and second stages, Main Engine Cutoff is where the 9 engines on the first stage will shut off in preparation for stage separation. That is where the first and second stages will separate from one another. The first stage will make its way back to our drone ship to attempt its 6th landing, and the second stage will continue with SES-1, which is where the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will start up and continue to propel our KPLO satellite to its desired orbit. Those events are coming up in about 10 seconds. For now, we are enjoying some excellent views of Falcon 9 during its ascent phase.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
We saw the confirmation of stage separation and the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Coming up in a few seconds, we're going to be looking for fairing deploy. Those fairing halves will separate from the top of the second stage and make their way back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And off they come. So those 2 fairing halves are now falling back to Earth. Those are the 4th flight for both of these fairing halves, and we are going to be attempting to retrieve them with the help of our recovery vessel, Bob. So we're coming up on T plus 4 minutes into the mission. We have a couple of views on screen. On the left-hand side is a view of that first stage, continuing to make its way back to Earth. And on the right-hand side is a view of the Merlin vacuum engine. On the opposite side of that engine is the second stage and the KPLO payload. So things continuing to go smoothly after liftoff. The next major milestone for the first stage occurs around the T plus 6 minute and 50 second mark. It's going to be the first of 2 burns.
On nominal trajectory.
The first burn is going to be called the entry burn. This is where we will relight the center engine number 9, followed by engines number 1 and 5. That way we'll have 3 M1D engines helping to slow down the first stage as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. The engine that you see on the right-hand side of the screen is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. It can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust, as opposed to the engines on the first stage, which are optimized to perform at sea level. Those can produce 190,000 pounds of thrust apiece. This view that you see on the left-hand side of the screen, that's actually inside the inner stage looking up. We mentioned those pusher rods, and that we saw a glimpse of those with that video. You can also see some action on the left-hand side of the screen. We see some bursts of white gas. That is nitrogen from our attitude control system. That, in conjunction with those hypersonic griffins that you see on screen, we see 2 of them. There's actually 4 at the top of the first stage. Those help to guide and steer and orient the first stage back to its targeted landing zone. Today it's going to be the drone ship Just Read the Instruction. So we are about 40 seconds away or 30 seconds away from that entry burn on the first stage. Second stage continues to perform nominally.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And those engines have indeed relit. The first stage is currently slowing down before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. This burn is expected to last for about 30 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Awesome. So that burn is in the books. We have one more to go on the first stage. That's a landing burn that's going to happen
Startup terminal guidance.
in about a minute. We are going to be listening here in about 20 seconds for a call out called SECO, that stands for Second Engine Cutoff 1. The engine that you see on screen will shut off its engine.
Has safed.
And then shortly after that, we'll listen for a call out for a nominal orbital insertion. That means that the second stage is entering its coast phase and is exactly where we want it to be before it relights its engine a little bit later on in the mission.
MVAC shutdown.
So we did see that the MVAC
Stage 1 transonic.
shut down.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there was the call out for nominal orbital insertion. The second stage is coasting for a bit longer, and we got views back of our first stage as it attempts its sixth landing on our
Stage
drone
1
ship.
landing burn.
And you can start to see the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Sometimes the video cuts out. We'll wait for confirmation of whether or not the first stage was able to land. But for now, we know that the second stage is in its coasting orbit. And there is that second stage with the Merlin vacuum engine off. And that's a view of the KPLO payload.
Expected loss of signal. Cape.
So we haven't heard confirmation of the first stage, whether it was able to land for the sixth time, but the second stage is now embarking on its coast phase between the first and second burns of the MVAC engine. After the coast phase, we'll light that MVAC engine for a second time, a bit after the T plus 34-minute mark.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And before we head off, we did get confirmation of the first stage landing. That is the 127th successful recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage and the 110th mission flying a rephone booster, which includes both Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9 missions.
KPLO, deploy confirmed.
And there you have it. Confirmation of successful separation of KPLO from Falcon 9 second stage. KPLO still has a bit of work to do over the next 4.5 months before getting into a lunar orbit, but we do wish it safe travels.